Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are undertaking a very high-stakes thought experiment. We're getting right to the very core of human nature, power, and survival. We are unpacking Thomas Hobbes's absolutely monumental work, Leviathan, and specifically his theory of the social contract. If you've ever stopped and wondered why on earth we just accept the authority of the state, or what would actually happen if society just collapsed overnight, well, you are in the right place. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to go well beyond the basic summaries you might have heard before and really look at the exact academic arguments and nuances that you absolutely need for top-tier understanding and exam prep. So here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, the war of all against all. 2, contract versus covenant. 3, institution versus acquisition. 4, we'll enter the fool. And finally, number 5, rational and feminist critiques. Let's get to it. Section 1, the war of all against all. The terrifying baseline. I want you to imagine a world with no laws, no police, no property rights, and literally no overarching authority to keep people in check. It is a chaotic, paranoid, and intensely brutal existence where every single waking moment is consumed by the primal drive just to survive. You can trust absolutely no one. Hobbes calls this terrifying baseline the state of nature. It's a pre-societal condition where humans live in a constant war of all against all. But humans aren't just savage, right? We're rational. And human reason leads us to discover what Hobbes calls the laws of nature. The very first law is simply this: seek peace as far as it is possible. The second law dictates the method to actually achieve that peace. It says a human being must be willing to sacrifice their natural right to everything, that ultimate, unlimited freedom, provided that everyone else is willing to do the exact same thing. But that brings up a massive logistical problem. If you're in a state of constant paranoid warfare where anyone could kill you at literally any moment, how do we actually execute that mutual sacrifice? How do we escape this endless war and guarantee that if I drop my weapon, you aren't just going to stab me in the back? Section 2. Contract versus covenant, the mechanism of escape. To solve this puzzle, Hobbes gets highly technical in Chapter 14. He introduces a specific legal framework to explain how this mutual laying down of rights actually functions in practice. So, we have to distinguish between a contract and a covenant. In Hobbes's terminology, a contract is an immediate exchange of rights. You give me an apple, I give you a coin right now. Boom, done. But a covenant, that is a subcategory of a contract, where one party performs their action right now and the other promises to perform in the future. It intrinsically requires trust. Hobbes argues that the social contract is technically a covenant. Citizens give up their rights now, relying on trust that the sovereign will actually provide security in the future. Hobbes outlines the exact structure of this agreement with this very famous formulation. Quote, I authorize and give up my right of governing myself to this man, on this condition that thou give up thy right to him. Now, what's really interesting here is the specific wording of this agreement. Notice that the covenant is structured strictly between the citizens themselves. It's each with each. It is absolutely not an agreement made with the sovereign. And this creates what Hobbes calls the author-actor dynamic. The citizens, by making this mutual covenant, are the authors of the power. The sovereign is merely the actor who exercises it on their behalf. And here is the genius and, honestly, perhaps the terror of Hobbes' logic. Because the sovereign is not a party to the contract, they cannot legally break it. They haven't made any promises. Therefore, their power is absolute, unchecked, and legally invincible. Section 3. Institution versus acquisition. The creation of the sovereign. So we have the legal theory of how this absolute power is justified. But how does this invincible sovereign actually come into existence out in the real messy world? Well, Hobbes gives us two paths. A commonwealth can be created by institution or by acquisition. By institution is voluntary. People come together out of a mutual fear of each other and elect a sovereign. By acquisition, however, is through force or conquest. A conqueror subdues a population and they submit out of fear of the conqueror, just to avoid death. But here is the critical takeaway. Hobbes argues that in both of these situations, the resulting power of the sovereign is completely equal, absolute, and indivisible. Why? Because the underlying motivation is identical: fear. It just shifts from the fear of your peers to the fear of the conqueror. And once this power is established, the covenant is totally irrevocable. Citizens cannot cancel the contract, not even if a vast majority wishes to do so. And why is that? Because the very ability of the people to act as a unified public majority only exists because of the contract in the first place. Without it, they revert instantly to a fragmented, chaotic mob in the state of nature. The only remaining limit, the only single right that can never be entirely signed away, is your individual right to self-preservation. If the sovereign literally tries to kill you, you can fight back. But that's pretty much it. Section 4. Enter the forally, testing the logical limits. Up until now, Hobbes has built an absolute fortress of logic. But in Chapter 15 of Leviathan, he pauses to play devil's advocate against his own theory, and he directly challenges our most selfish instincts. He introduces the fool, a hypothetical objector. The fool basically argues, look, if human beings are naturally self-interested, and if justice is really just an artificial social construct that we invented, then shouldn't a truly rational person just break the covenant whenever they can secretly benefit from it? So the crucial point is, why obey the law if you know for a fact you can cheat and get away with it? Hobbes answers the fool by demonstrating that cheating is incredibly short-sighted. If you break the rules for short-term gain, step 1, you develop a reputation for treachery. You just can't keep it a secret forever. Step 2, once you are known as a traitor, society will exclude you because you cannot be trusted. Step 3, excluded from that cooperative society, you lose all the survival benefits of the Commonwealth, and you're thrown right back into the state of nature where you will very likely perish. Therefore, obeying the covenant isn't just about some lofty sense of morality, it is the ultimate, strictly rational choice for long-term survival. Section 5. Feminist and Rational Critiques, Evaluating the Legacy. To truly master this topic, we have to zoom out for a second and look at how modern scholars dissect Hobbes's incredibly tight, but perhaps flawed, logic. First, we have to remember what this text actually is. Most scholars agree that Hobbes was not writing literal history. He didn't actually believe ancient humans sat down around a campfire and drafted a legal covenant. No, the state of nature and the covenant are a thought experiment. It's a logical tool engineered to prove a specific point: why entirely rational, self-interested people would willingly accept a dictator. But does the logic actually hold up? And this brilliantly illustrates the ongoing debate in political philosophy today. Gene Hampton expands on the fool's argument, questioning that if humans are truly utterly selfish, what rational incentive remains to obey the sovereign after basic security is achieved? David Gauthier extensively tests the internal consistency of Hobbes's contract morality. And incredibly importantly, Carol Patman offers a profound feminist critique in The Sexual Contract. She points out a massive, glaring blind spot: the historical and theoretical missing consent of women, children, and subordinated classes in this supposedly universal agreement. Furthermore, Hobbes's whole idea of acquisition makes violently conquered power just as legitimate as voluntary consent, which is a deeply uncomfortable theoretical conclusion. To put Hobbes in his proper context, you really have to contrast his specific version of the social contract with those who came later. While John Locke envisioned a limited contract where the government is just a trustee and citizens retain a right to rebel, and Rousseau argued for a contract based on the general will keeping sovereignty with the people, Hobbes really stands alone in his sheer absolutism. His contract is irrevocable, surrendering total power to a sovereign who isn't even legally bound by the agreement. Ultimately, Hobbes engineered a brilliant, terrifyingly logical puzzle that forces us to look in the mirror. He stripped away divine right and attempted to build the state purely on human reason and mutual self-interest. But as we reflect on all of this, I want to leave you with a final provocative question to consider. When you look at modern governments today, is our obedience to the state truly based on our ongoing rational consent? Or is it, at its absolute core, still just the lingering fear of the sovereign sword? Think about that for a while. Keep analyzing, keep questioning, and I will see you in the next explainer.